Tonight, Democrats are showing exactly what subpoena power looks like. A vote to force Attorney General Barr to hand over the entire Mueller report and supporting evidence Mueller gathered. Chairman Nadler saying this is about Congress's independent power to see all that evidence.
The committee must see everything, as was done in every prior instance. The committee is entitled and must see all the material and make judgments as to what can be redacted for the public release. We're not willing to let the Attorney General, who after all is a political appointee of the President, make that substitute his judgment for ours.
Notice what the chairman's arguing there, that this is not only about what's in the report, but who evaluates what's in the report. He's arguing the Constitution and recent history show it should be Congress. The White House arguing that the very rules that were written under a Democratic Justice Department give the executive key powers here. So tonight, right now, our special report digs into this history that we have been hearing so much about, and we think it's pretty interesting. All the way back when Chairman Nadler was Congressman Nadler, it was certainly the United States House of Representatives in the driver's seat. In fact, it was then Congressman Nadler speaking about receiving Ken Starr's independent counsel report in full. This was back in September 1998.
We did get the report, which is now in the hands of the Sergeant at Arms. The chairman and ranking minority members of the Judiciary Committee is going to have to go over this material, at least the 400 or 500 pages in the report, to determine what is fit for release.
What is fit? And as he said there, it was true. Congress was deciding what was fit to release. Starr also discussing how that arrangement left him in the dark about what Congress would reveal to the public with or without redactions.
We did not know whether the House would publicly release both the report and the backup materials, would release portions of one or both, would release redacted versions of the report and backup documents, or would simply keep the referral and the backup materials under seal, just as Special Prosecutor Leon Jaworski's submission in 1974 remained under seal.
Starr saying that it was the Congress that was going to decide whether it went public or stayed under seal. And as everyone knows, Republicans led a House vote to release the entire report swiftly. Americans began taking in everything Starr found, leading to controversies about President Clinton's conduct, as well as Starr's tactics and how many other people were exposed in the process. Now, here's an important distinction as we all think through these historical examples. Just because the government did something, like release the full Starr report, doesn't mean that's the only way to do it. In court cases, people refer to precedent as an example that should usually be followed the next time. But in fights between the Congress and the executive branch, precedent can just be one option on the table. And that is illustrated in another report on a probe into a White House when prosecutor Leon Jaworski laid out findings against Nixon, including evidence of obstruction. And like Starr, Jaworski was operating under fairly independent rules. But in a difference from Starr, his Watergate report was not released immediately, nor was it released within that year. Nor was it released even after Nixon resigned under pressure from Congress after what Jaworski's report found. In fact, the famous Watergate report was released just last year after saying secret, under seal, for a whopping 44 years. So, two reports. One went public immediately, the other did not. And that shows this can still go down in several different ways. As for whether such reports can be kept from Congress entirely, meaning not just kept from the public, but from Congress, well, that does involve a court precedent. It's worth noting Nixon's former chief of staff tried to block that same Watergate report from ever going to the House at all. And he cited grand jury secrecy rules, which can be a barrier. Trump's AG also citing them for potential redactions in his latest letter. So Nixon's former staffer lost that fight in court. The findings stayed secret, but the judge ordered the report to go to Congress.
Judge John Sirica said today he will send a secret grand jury report on President Nixon and the Watergate cover-up to impeachment investigators in the House of Representatives.
And when you dig through this history and some of the coverage at the time, you may hear another echo, because while many remember that the grand jury did name President Nixon an unindicted co-conspirator, the prosecutor's report, you can think of that as Mueller, provided information about Nixon for Congress to consider, but not in an accusatory way. Why is that familiar? Well, if you watch the news, you probably know that is what Trump's new AG Barr says Mueller did with his obstruction evidence. Now, you could decide for yourself if the coverage at that time has kind of an eerily similar echo to what Barr says Mueller just did.
The judge described the report as a compilation of information and said it contained no formal charges, was not accusatory, but said it is obligatory that the information on the president be given to the Judiciary Committee.
The judge ruling that when the House Judiciary Committee gets information on the president, it's Congress that deals with it. Now, as for the secrecy on the grand jury part, the judge ruled Congress could see it because the grand jury had ended its work, writing there's no need to protect grand jury deliberations to safeguard unaccused or innocent persons with secrecy. The ruling also shows how words matter, because even when a president might use them to try to have it both ways, something that Nixon and Trump have been accused of, it was Nixon's former chief of staff who sued to block the report, while President Nixon seemed to try to stay above the fray. And the judge found that also hurt President Nixon, noting, quote, "The person on whom the report focuses, the president, has not objected to its release to this House committee." They say be careful what you wish for. Well, also be careful what you might bluff for. Because while Bill Barr talks about redacting many parts of this Mueller report, Trump claims he supports it all coming out.
Does the public have a right to see the Mueller report? I don't mind. Let it come out. Let people see it.
Let it come out. If there is a court battle over the redacted parts of this Mueller report, the quote you just heard could end up in court. Now, in the Watergate example, you had basically a big fight over what Congress saw without it going public. There are other examples that went wider. There was an independent counsel named Walsh who was in the Iran-Contra case. And he said that when a court ruled on the Iran-Contra affair, that is important to go to the public.
Where any attorney general is advising the president and feels a protective sense toward him, it's difficult for that person to turn around and be the prosecutorial officer.
Again, you can put your history hat on. What you would be hearing there is someone in the Mueller position criticizing someone in the Barr position, and that's what Chairman Nadler and others have been saying today. So what if, take it all together, there is a court battle? Well, remember, the White House does have an argument here, as we've pointed out on this show, that Mueller is operating under different rules than the prosecutors you saw. But Congress has an argument that whatever those little rules are, which, by the way, can change under any Justice Department, the constitutional issues come in play. It was ultimately those issues, transparency, congressional accountability for potentially criminal presidential acts, that animated the famous ruling on the Nixon tapes subpoena, which only took 3 months to reach this resolution.
Good morning. The Supreme Court has just ruled on the tapes controversy, and here's Carl Stern, who has that ruling. It is a unanimous decision, Doug, 8-0. Justice Rehnquist took no part in the decision ordering the President of the United States to turn over the tapes.
Turn over the tapes. I mentioned the distinctions about precedent. No one's saying that is apples to apples. Those were tapes, not a congressional desired report. But as we just showed, when it comes to predicting how fast and how strong the Supreme Court might intervene in a case like this, well, history shows if they think there are secrets being kept from Congress that go to Congress's core powers, well, they might uncork those secrets in a very big way. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.